Welcome back to the next session on Service Operations Management. Now let's begin with our learning. In this particular session, we'll be understanding and dealing with the concept of measures to conduct customer satisfaction survey. The learning objectives. At the end of this particular session, the learners will be able to understand what do we mean by customer satisfaction survey, explain the importance of the customer satisfaction survey in an organization. What are the various activities that have been undertaken for the effective conduction of customer satisfaction survey? And lastly, what are the various factors that affect the customer satisfaction survey that has been undertaken? Now let's begin with our learning. The customer satisfaction survey is a survey or a report that has been undertaken with respect to the feedbacks of the customers who are purchasing our products or who have availed our services. The organization's ability to stay within our organization or get associated with the product, it's completely depend on whether the customers are satisfied with the product that we have delivered to them or whether the service that has been availed by them. And hence, the customer requirements always keeps on changing. So at the end, whenever the consumer purchases our goods or services, it is necessary to see that the services that have been delivered to them, they are whether satisfied and happy with those particular services or what is their consideration as to their level of satisfaction. So in order to understand those particular things, one has to undergo a particular survey. And the survey that has been undertaken is called the customer satisfaction survey. The customer satisfaction survey can be undertaken either in the oral format or either it can be taken in a written format. In today's scenario, that is in the modern world, the customer satisfaction survey is taken in an online mode, wherein the customer is being provided with a certain questionnaire which is available online, and the customer has to give their feedbacks as to their responses about what they feel about the product, what they feel about the services, and how is their level of satisfaction. Now let's understand what are the 3 C's of customer satisfaction. The various 3 C's of customer satisfaction are consistency. The second C is again the consistency, and the third C is again the consistency, wherein the customer or the company or the organization should always try to see that whether they are consistent in providing the product that was been designated, that was been designed, and whether the target is been achieved or it is been met or not. And hence, for this particular consideration, the customer satisfaction survey is essentially important. Now let us understand what are the various measures to conduct the customer satisfaction survey. Number one, that is customer feedback through surveys. So the customer satisfaction survey can be undertaken on the basis of feedback that has been provided by the customers. The customer, after using or after purchasing a certain product, may provide a feedback either in a written format or either through an email. So when the particular feedback is provided by the customer, then accordingly on the basis of the survey, which may be dependent on the simple random selection or the arranged sampling, the feedback or the survey can be undertaken. The second perspective is customer satisfaction score. So here in this case, the scores can be undertaken and accordingly the customer may be asked to rate a particular product. And accordingly, the score may be counted as to 10%, 20%, 30%, 60%, 80%, and or 100%. And in this way, various scores can be calculated and the scores as to what is the level of satisfaction can be measured. The third perspective or the measure is the net promoter score. In case of the net promoter score, it tends to understand or identifies what are the various measures or characteristics that have been associated with a certain product or the service that has been availed by the consumer. And based on those concerns, the net promoter score can be calculated and the customer's feedback can be counted. The next consideration or the measure that is being undertaken to conduct the customer satisfaction survey are customer effort score. Simultaneously, when a company or an organization has been taking a certain effect with respect to the goods and services that have been manufactured and that have been sold, ultimately the customer is also taking certain efforts to get the desired product. And for this particular stage, the effort that have been taken by the customer to reach a particular product and provide a certain feedback in order to get the product available at the right time, at the right place, the score that has been calculated is called the customer effort score. The fifth perspective is the web analytics. So on the basis of various web analytics, the various countings or the evaluation as to what is the performance of the product on the online platform or the offline platform in the markets as to perfect market or imperfect market, the web analytics situation can be undertaken. And the web analytics is a consideration wherein the satisfaction survey is been taken in an online mode or an offline mode. The social media metrics. Social media metrics focuses on the concept of the performance of a certain product on the social media platforms. That is, various social media platforms as to Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, and so on. So, what is the performance of a certain product? Where on which platforms the customer are preferring to purchase those products, and which locations or surveys or at which platforms the survey can be undertaken. These are the consideration as to the social media metrics where the performance survey or the satisfaction survey can be undertaken. Now let us understand the various examples that can improve the customer satisfaction. Number one is we have to listen to our customers. So it is essentially important to see that whenever we want to provide a better and effective feedback to our customers, and the quality or service delivery should be optimum, for those particular consideration, we must effectively listen from the customers. And hence, the listening from the customer should be a continuous and ongoing activity. And based on those particular consideration, the effect or the activity as to customer satisfaction should be undertaken. The next perspective is being proactive and practicing honesty and managing the expectations. Here, in this case, always the organization should be very proactive and should be quite confident to see that how do we approach a certain customers. So, while approaching a particular customer, when the goods, services, and commodities are being provided to them, for those particular considerations, practicing of honesty and managing expectations are essentially important, and hence it increases the customer's level of satisfaction. Understanding the customers. Here, in this case, we need to understand who our customer is, what product or quality or services that we need to provide him, and how those particular products and services can be provided in a better way or in a qualitative. And for those particular consideration, understanding the customer is essentially important. The next method, now let's understand what are the various methods for customer satisfaction survey. Number one is the direct method. Number two is the indirect method. Number three is the absolute or fundamental method. Number four is the comparative method. Number five is transposition method. Number six is the coincidence method. Number seven is the deflection method. And lastly, the complementary method. So here in this case, with those consideration or the application of every individual step, the direct feedback from the customers or the satisfaction survey from the customers can be undertaken. That is, either which can be collected directly from the consumers, or in the indirect mode, we can ask certain few questions wherein the feedback or the survey can be undertaken. The absolute or the fundamental method focuses on asking the questions, specific questions with respect to the product according to their need, want, desire, requirement, satisfaction, fulfillment. The comparative method is been undertaken to get a certain comparison or the feedback with respect to a competitor's product and our product that is being offered or a service that is being availed. The transposition method focuses on the satisfaction survey as to changes in the time consideration. The coincidence method focuses on the concept of the availability of the product at the right time, at the right place, whenever the customer needs or whenever he demands. The deflection method focuses on what are the various defects that a customer is facing for and what are the various ups and downs or changes in the particular method. The complementary method focuses on whatever perquisites or additional benefits or facilities are being provided to the consumer, how those facilities help to understand or get a better understanding for the product to a customer or to a purchaser. Now let us understand what are the various indicators of the customer satisfaction. The various indications for the customer satisfaction are: number one, the CSAT, that is the customer satisfaction score, that has been calculated. Number two is the net promoter score. Number three is the customer effort score. Number four is the average deal size. And number five is customer acquisition rate, that is CAR. So these are the various indicators based on which the customer satisfaction score can be calculated. An organization can implement any one of those particular steps, and based on this consideration, the satisfaction survey or the level of satisfaction can be measured. May it be CSAT, NPS, CES, average deal size, or CAR. Any one of the method can be selected, and accordingly, based on those considerations, the indicator as to customer satisfaction level, as to what percentage or what level of satisfaction is into existence, those particular measures can be calculated. Now let us understand what are the various guidelines that have been provided as to types of survey questions. Number one is the open-ended questions. Number two is the multiple choice questions. Number three is the ordinal scale questions. Number four is the internal scale questions. Number five is the ratio scale questions. So in this way, various types of questions can be asked to a customer based on what type of information we are needing or we want to get or collect from the customers. So for those particular perspectives, the guidelines as to preparation of questionnaires and preparation of different types of questions should be used. A good questionnaire should be a combination of all these particular types of questions, wherein an open-ended question can be asked to a customer, wherein the specific question is being asked and accordingly specific options have been provided. In case of a multiple choice questions, the customer is being provided with a certain question with a certain choices or certain options, and accordingly the customer has to select either one or the multiple options. In case of an ordinal scale questions, a customer is asked to rate a certain product on the basis of certain order. That is first, second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, and so on. So accordingly, the customer has to rate or assign a certain order, and he has to rate a certain product or the service which is being asked according to the question. In terms of an interval scale, the question is always based on a certain interval. That is, if it is in a percentage, then 0 to 20%, 21 to 40%, 41 to 60%, 61 to 80%, and 81 to 100%. So in this way, on the basis of certain interval, the questions are being asked. On the basis of the ratio scale, the customer identification or the measures are being undertaken to identify what is their level of satisfaction with respect to a certain ratio. That is either a 50%, 80%, 85%, 95%, 100%, and so on. Now let us understand or consider the steps for a successful customer satisfaction survey. Step number one is we have to first initially create the questions. So creating the questions on the basis of various different types of methods for establishment should be used, and accordingly the question needs to be prepared. Step number two is asking the questions. Here in this case, the various questions should be asked to the customers and the consumers, and accordingly the survey needs to be undertaken. The step number three is tallying the results. So accordingly, based on the questionnaire that is being prepared and the questions that are being asked, the various results needs to be computed, needs to be calculated, and on those particular perspectives, the results tally should be undertaken. The step number four is presenting the results. So here in this case, the result that have been calculated or the computation that has been done, on those particular basis, the presentation of results should be undertaken. Now let us understand the various 6 steps to conduct an effective survey. Number one is determining who will participate in the survey. So it is very essential to determine who will be participating in our surveys, and accordingly the survey should be circulated and forwarded to only those participants. Deciding the type of survey. So what type of survey will be undertaken and how it will be shared with the people or with the individual, whether through an email, through an online mode, or through in person. That is, it will be forwarded with a form of a questionnaire on an email, or an online web portal based survey satisfaction can be undertaken, or by meeting one-on-one customers, the survey satisfaction can be conducted. Designing the survey questions and layout. So accordingly, the next process is to design the survey. The question needs to be arranged in a certain sequence, and accordingly, based on the questions that have been framed, the layout needs to be prepared. The next perspective is distributing the survey. So based on the survey that has been undertaken or it has been calculated, we need to distribute the surveys to the different people or to the different customers from whom we are expecting the rate of results, and the data needs to be collected. The next perspective is analyzing the responses. So based on a certain consideration, we have to analyze what response we have received, whether the response is positive, whether the response is negative, and what percentage calculations are being observed from those considerations. The next perspective or the last concern is writing up the results. So accordingly, based on the results or the responses that have been collected, one has to write up the results that have been collected and what is the findings of those particular survey that has been undertaken. So in this case, we have to understand the customer satisfaction survey is being only undertaken to find out what is the satisfaction level of the customer. That is, on the basis of the customer satisfaction survey, one can understand very clearly as to whether the client is happy or whether he is not happy. The survey gives you a clear understanding about what is the performance level of a certain product and how the product is being performing or how the services are being delivered. The questionnaire that we are preparing, it can be on the basis of various concerns. That is a multiple choice question, a rating question, or open-ended question, a closed-ended question, or a straight directly asked question. So in this way, there are various methods for asking the questions to a customer. One of the effective model that has been implemented or used in the modern era is the survey qual model. So based on the survey qual model, the service quality that has been delivered to a customer can be identified very effectively, and accordingly, the responsiveness of a certain product can be judged or it can be measured. And hence, the 5 categories of a survey qual model is dependability, responsiveness, assurance, empathy, and tangibles. And hence, in this way, The service quality model focuses on how a particular product or a service is been getting connected to a consumer and how it is acting as an effective mode for the communication between the consumers and between the supplier. Now let's summarize what we have learned in this particular session. In this particular session, we have understood and learned what do we mean by customer satisfaction survey, what are the various activities that have been performed under the customer satisfaction survey, what are the various benefits that have been associated as to the customer satisfaction survey. I hope you must have enjoyed the learning at this particular stage. Thank you so much for your patience listening. Thank you.